climbers stranded on Africa's tallest mountain with nowhere to go. A thunderstorm is brewing and lightning is about to strike.
All plans completely went haywire from the get-go.
Felt like I wasn't going to make it.
But no one could have imagined just how devastating this storm would be. Welcome to Surviving the Impossible. Rising above the dusty African plains is Mount Kilimanjaro, the tallest mountain in Africa.
Kilimanjaro was something that was on each of our bucket lists.
I was 47 at the time that I did it. I wanted to do something I wasn't comfortable with. I was hiking with a friend. He said, why not go to Kilimanjaro and do that? And I said, that sounds great. Where is it?
Known as one of the safest big mountains to climb, it attracts thousands of adventurers to its slopes every year. But danger is always lurking, and even the most seasoned climbers can't escape the power of Mother Nature. As stunning as Kilimanjaro is, it's no easy climb. It may not be as technically challenging as the Himalayas or Andes, but it's still unpredictable. The weather can turn nasty in an instant. The summit is bitterly cold, and most climbers deal with some level of altitude sickness.
At Summit Base Camp, Kilimanjaro, you're going to be at 15,000 feet, and you still have to get up to 19,341 feet on summit day. The concern is that anytime you're over 10,000 feet, you have 30% less oxygen in your brain.
Every year, thousands of people take on the challenge, and in January 2013, Irish climber Ian McKeever was ready to make another ascent. Ian was no stranger to Kilimanjaro. An accomplished climber, he'd built an impressive resume over the years. Ian held multiple world records. In 2004, he broke the record for the 5 Peaks Challenge, climbing and descending the tallest peaks in the UK and Ireland in less than 48 hours. Then, in 2007, he completed the 7 Summits Challenge, climbing the tallest mountains on all 7 continents in just 155 days. He even summited Mount Everest, an achievement that changed his life forever. But 6 years later, Ian's connection to Kilimanjaro would take on an even deeper meaning. This mountain had always been special to Ian. In 2008, he climbed it with his 10-year-old godson, Sean McSherry, helping him become the youngest European to reach Kilimanjaro's peak. Sean might have doubted himself, but Ian didn't. He had a gift for seeing potential in others. Ian truly believed that people could push themselves further, mentally and physically, than they ever thought possible. This belief inspired Ian to create the Kilimanjaro Achievers organization. The charity helped fund expeditions for Irish high school students, turning the climb into much more than a bucket list adventure. These trips were about self-discovery, digging deep and challenging young people to realize their full potential. And Ian, with his enthusiasm and leadership, was the perfect role model.
Cool thing about Kilimanjaro, when you get there, you have a choice. Better or bitter, you park your baggage at the bottom. When you come off this mountain, you decide whether you want to pick up that baggage or not. Now, if you can give a young person that opportunity in any other way, shape or form, then bring it on.
Ian took great pride in being a successful guide. He typically led about 10 climbs up Kilimanjaro every year, and he had an incredible 100% success rate. But in 2013, Ian's experience on Kilimanjaro would be like no other, and its impact would resonate far beyond the mountain. In January 2013, things didn't go as planned. This climb was unlike any Ian McKeever had ever experienced. The weather was brutal. Torrential rain poured down the mountainside, soaking the group and threatening to wash away their dreams before they even really started. But bad weather? That's just part of the adventure, right? This climb was different for another reason. At 42, Ian wasn't just leading a typical group of school kids up Kilimanjaro this time. Instead, his group of 20 climbers included friends and family, like his fiancée, 34-year-old Anna Oluglu. The group was a mix of abilities. Some had never hiked a day in their lives, while others had climbed some of the tallest peaks in the world. But they all had one thing in common. They were mentally prepared for the challenge ahead. After months of planning, the big day had finally arrived. On December 28, 2012, Ian and the team landed in Tanzania, making their way to Arusha for a night of rest before their adventure began. Arusha was buzzing with activity, a hub for trekkers preparing to take on Kilimanjaro. The streets were packed with climbers doing last-minute prep, sharing a quiet excitement as they geared up for the journey ahead. On Kilimanjaro, there's no winning or losing, just those who make it to the summit and those who don't. But this time, someone was about to lose big.
Welcome to Kilimanjaro. Today is when the real climbing begins. Hell of a lot to climb. So with a bit of care and attention, hopefully we'll be on the summit soon enough.
Before they left Ireland, Ian shared one last post on social media. He wrote, "So here we go. Familiar patterns for some. Anxious parents, driving to the airport. Excited adults, desperate to escape the humdrum of another drunken New Year's Eve party somewhere on Dublin's main streets. Yet all the while, there's a tingle in the air, a hint of expectation as 23 more people prepare to board a plane bound for Africa. And we wish them every success as they make their journeys toward the summit of Africa's highest peak. What better way to ring in the new year, eh?" In a tragic twist, it would be the last New Year Ian would ever see. Climbing Kilimanjaro typically takes 7 to 10 days. The lower slopes are hot and steamy, covered in dense jungle where monkeys dart across well-trodden paths. It's lush and vibrant, tricking climbers into thinking the trek might be easier than it is. As you climb higher, the jungle gives way to moorland, barren and open, with loose stones and sand underfoot that make for tough hiking. The weather grows colder, the air thinner, and the only sounds are the crunch of boots on gravel and the heavy breathing of climbers battling the altitude. Beyond the moorland lies alpine desert, just rocks and emptiness.
The alpine desert has basically no plant life. There might be a few little grasses or something hiding in the lee of a boulder. Pretty cool place, very much like walking on the moon.
This was where Ian and his group set up camp for the night. It was in these moments, high up on the mountain, that Ian felt truly alive. Ian's love for adventure started young. Adopted from St. Patrick's Guild in County Dublin, he moved out of his family home at 17 to find his independence. By 1996, he was a familiar voice on the radio, delivering traffic updates on Today FM. But his journey into mountaineering wasn't smooth. The first time Ian tried the 5 Peaks Challenge, he couldn't even name the peaks. He was unprepared and failed miserably. His second attempt, filmed by a TV crew, ended in failure too. Watching himself fail on screen became the push he needed to dig deep and push beyond his limits. On his 4th attempt, he smashed the world record, and he never looked back. From that moment on, Ian knew that if he could succeed, so could anyone. It became his mission to help others reach their potential.
I remain philosophical. This was never just about an ego trip and breaking a world record. If I had a choice, and my choice was to go tomorrow or sneak up the following day or go with this team, I'd rather go with the team.
On December 30th, 2012, Ian's team set off on their climb, planning to reach the summit by January 4th. It was a quick schedule, but Ian knew they could handle it. The group was more than capable, but some challenges were out of their hands. The weather was relentless. Torrential rain battered the team, turning the slopes into slippery mudslides and making river crossings treacherous. Rocks became hazards, paths eroded underfoot, and being constantly soaked put the group at risk of hypothermia. It was brutal. For Ian, this trip was more than just another climb. It was also a warm-up for a bigger challenge. Along with his friend and African climbing guide, Samuel Kinsonga, Ian had plans to make the fastest ascent of Kilimanjaro as part of their anti-racism campaign. Black and white makes sense, but that dream would never come to life. The relentless rain was unusual for this time of year. Ian never would have taken the team up Kilimanjaro if he'd known this kind of weather was coming. Typically, Tanzania's heavy, long rains hit between March and May, while the lighter short rains fall between late October and early December. The dry seasons, January to early March and June to October, are the most popular times to climb, and Ian had planned this trip perfectly. But this year was different. Thick, ominous clouds gathered above, signaling trouble. Still, there wasn't much the team could do about the weather, and they were determined to press on. With Ian's vast experience, they couldn't have asked for a better leader. But with every step they climbed, they were unknowingly heading toward disaster. Ian had planned to reach the iconic lava tower by New Year's Day. A massive 300-foot volcanic plug formed hundreds of thousands of years ago when Kilimanjaro was an active volcano. It's a key milestone on the climb and a popular camping spot. But the heavy rain and muddy trails set them back. Instead, Ian adjusted their route and aimed for Shira Camp 2, about 2,000 feet below Lava Tower. The team slogged their way up the soaked mountainside, their boots squelching in the water running beneath them. Every few minutes they paused to catch their breath or take a sip of water, but the view was obscured by mist and rain. Everything around them was gray and dark. By the time they arrived at Shira Camp 2, it was clear this was not the trip anyone had planned, and it was about to get much worse. As they reached the camp, the team dropped their heavy packs to the ground with a collective sigh of relief. The hike had been grueling, especially with the miserable weather. Shira Camp 2, a popular spot for climbers to acclimate before heading higher, is an exposed, rocky plateau. The ground is hard, dotted with small alpine shrubs, and the facilities are primitive at best. Just basic toilets and tents scattered across the landscape. The relentless rain had turned the area into a swamp of puddles and mud. The team set up their tents, warmed themselves with a meal, and tried to relax. Mealtime in the mountains was a chance to reflect, recharge, and bond as a group. But this time was different. Most of the group already felt like family. Ian couldn't think of a better place to be than surrounded by the people he loved. Later that evening, Ian sat in his tent, sheltering from the unrelenting rain. Writing was his way of decompressing, and he updated his social media. Ian had already written 2 books, Give Me Shelter and Give Me Heroes, and was working on a third, Give Me 28 Days. As the wind howled outside, Ian typed, Shira 2, 4,000 meters. Torrential rain all day. Spirits remain good, even if drying clothes is proving impossible. We pray for drier weather tomorrow. The big day, it's the Lava Tower. But Ian had no idea just how big the next day would be. As he fell asleep that night, he didn't know it would be his last. The next morning, hope for clearer skies quickly disappeared. As the team peeked out of their tents, they saw the rain was still coming down. The ground was completely waterlogged. Ian couldn't make sense of the weather. He'd faced tough conditions in his mountaineering career, but he'd never seen anything like this on Kilimanjaro. They had to keep moving. The summit was getting closer, and Ian knew all too well the incredible feeling of standing on the top of the world. He was eager for his team to experience it too, just a few days from now. The overnight break had given everyone a much-needed energy boost, and spirits were high as they set out again. The plan was to reach the lava tower at 15,000 feet, a critical point for acclimatization. From there, they'd descend slightly before making their final push toward the summit on Friday. It would be the perfect end to a grueling and unusually wet week. As they climbed, the team took in the scenery around them. The surrounding peaks and the vast Kilimanjaro valley below were breathtaking. But the clouds above weren't so reassuring. They were dark and ominous, and soon the distant rumble of thunder echoed across the valley, like a warning from the mountain itself. The younger members of the group felt a mix of fear and excitement, but as the thunder grew louder, the sense of danger became impossible to ignore. Everyone knew that being high on Kilimanjaro during a thunderstorm was not ideal, but where could they go? There was no escape. Ian, always the calm leader, pressed on. He took his responsibilities as a guide and mentor seriously and would never have put his team in danger if he thought it was avoidable. He had faced danger before. During his 7 Peaks challenge, he encountered tribal warfare and suffered snow blindness, permanently damaging the retina in one eye.
Can't see anything. Not quite how I thought it would be on Mount Everest. Several times I thought I was a goner, passed a few dead bodies, rolled over a few, actually, believe it or not, because I didn't know where they were.
This storm, however, was shaping up to be a challenge unlike anything Ian had faced before. The team climbed onward, heads down, one foot in front of the other. The steady rhythm of boots crunching against gravel and mud was the only sound, apart from their labored breathing in the thin air. The altitude was starting to take its toll, sapping their energy. Legs ached, lungs burned, and hearts pounded in their ears. But that's the nature of mountain climbing. Every painful step is worth it when you reach the summit and see the sun rise over the vast wilderness below. Unfortunately, Ian's team would never get to experience that. The dark clouds above grew heavier, and flashes of lightning lit up the sky. But it wasn't just beautiful, it was dangerous. It felt like the team was climbing straight into the heart of the storm. The storm was closing in fast. Then it was all around them. There was nowhere to hide, and the idea of it passing quickly felt like wishful thinking. The team was less than 3,000 feet from the summit, with just a couple of days of climbing left. The end was so close, but the storm had other plans. Without warning, an ear-splitting crack of thunder and a blinding flash of lightning hit at the same time. It all happened so quickly that no one knew what was going on at first. Many were knocked off their feet, stunned by the sheer force of the strike. 60-year-old Jack O'Donoghue, walking right next to Ian, was thrown to the ground. He hit hard, bruised and disoriented, but alive. As Jack sat up, he looked around, trying to make sense of the chaos. Bloody heads, sprained ankles, shaken nerves. But then Jack's eyes landed on something that made his heart stop. Just feet away lay Ian. He wasn't moving. What had been a quiet, focused hike moments ago erupted into panic. Screams and shouts filled the air as the team realized the severity of what had happened. Lightning had struck the ground near them. Tragically, Ian had taken the full force of the lightning. Anna and several others in the group rushed to his side, but they were in one of the most remote locations imaginable. Getting off the mountain quickly was nearly impossible, and the weather was too severe to call in air support. Thankfully, every route on Kilimanjaro is monitored by rescue teams, and it wasn't long before help arrived. Ian was still alive, but just barely. His pulse was faint. The only option was to carry him down the mountain. The climb had turned into a nightmare in an instant. Lightning strikes on Kilimanjaro are rare, and yet here they were, racing against time to save Ian. As the rescue team carried him down the mountain, everyone prayed he would make it. But the journey felt agonizingly slow, and each step seemed to take forever. Tragically, Ian passed away before reaching medical care. The group was in shock, reeling from the sudden loss. Jack O'Donoghue, who had been just 3 feet from Ian when the lightning struck, couldn't stop thinking about how close he had come. The descent back down the mountain was grim and heartbreaking. The group, once lively and excited, walked in silence, their grief hanging heavy in the air. It took nearly an entire day to reach the base of Kilimanjaro. When they finally made it, the group could finally pause and process the enormity of what had happened. Just days before, they had been hiking with Ian, full of hope and excitement. Now, everything had changed. Some members of the group, including Ian's fiancée, Anna, were taken to a nearby hospital for treatment. Anna had been close to Ian when the lightning struck, and while she survived, she suffered a leg injury from the aftershock. But the physical pain was nothing compared to the heartbreak. Anna and Ian had been planning to get married that September. Climbing Kilimanjaro had been their perfect adventure, a chance to combine their shared love for the mountains and Ian's charity work. From her hospital bed, Anna made an emotional statement. "Ian, I love you dearly. I miss you terribly. I cannot conceive what to do next without you, but yet I know you will always be with me." Anna's family flew to Tanzania to be with her, providing much-needed support during the darkest moment of her life. They were the ones who had to break the devastating news to Ian's parents, who were heartbroken. Ian's father described the loss as an express train hitting him. Ian was gone far too soon, but Ian's legacy would live on. A plaque now stands at the site where Ian fell, serving as both a tribute to his remarkable life and a reminder to respect the power of Mother Nature. News of the tragedy spread quickly, and tributes poured in from around the world.
Tributes have been paid to the climber and charity fundraiser Ian McKeever, who died while ascending Africa's highest mountain, Mount Kilimanjaro.
It was clear just how many lives Ian had touched. Even Ireland's Prime Minister, Enda Kenny, shared his grief, remembering Ian as a man driven by the belief that everyone could achieve their full potential. Enda recalled Ian once telling him, "There is no place on earth I'd rather be than in the mountains." Ian may be gone, but his impact on those who knew him and those inspired by his story will never fade. Ian will always be remembered for his selfless dedication to charity. Over the years, he raised countless funds for causes close to his heart, often coming up with wild and creative ways to generate donations. He even worked with pop star Ronan Keating to support his charitable organization. Founding the Kilimanjaro Achievers Organization was a natural fit for Ian. It brought together his two biggest passions, climbing mountains and helping others. If there's any small comfort to be found in such a devastating loss, Ian's family believes it's this. He passed away doing what he loved, in a place he loved, and surrounded by people he cared about deeply. On average, 3 to 10 people lose their lives on Mount Kilimanjaro every year. Most fatalities are caused by altitude-related illnesses such as acute mountain sickness, AMS, high-altitude pulmonary edema, APA, and high-altitude cerebral edema, OICA. Occasionally, Deaths are due to unforeseen cardiac events or rare accidents like falling rocks. Lightning strikes aren't even on the list. News of Ian's passing sent shockwaves through the climbing community. Kilimanjaro is known as one of the safest big mountains in the world, and no guide or local could recall a lightning strike ever claiming a climber's life there. Some even said the odds of being struck by lightning on Kilimanjaro were lower than winning the lottery. But sadly, for Ian, the odds weren't in his favor.
Somebody once told me in life, you always have a choice. Maybe not about the SH1 that hits the fan and appears on your screen or on your daily monitor, but you certainly have a choice in how you react. And that choice is better or bitter. It's your choice.